What if I told you that the most common, most widely taught way to hook a live shiner is also the absolute best way to guarantee it's dead before a base even sees it? It sounds crazy, right? We've all been taught to hook them a certain way, a method passed down from our fathers and their fathers, but today we're going to expose a fatal flaw in that classic technique. We're going to show you why your live bait might be dying on the drop and how one tiny change can completely transform your success. So let me ask you, do you think a bait that's fighting for its life looks more or less appealing to a predator? Let's get into it. For decades, the standard advice for hooking a shiner has been pretty consistent. Go through the lips. It makes sense on the surface. It seems secure, it looks clean, and the common wisdom is that it allows the shiner to swim naturally. You see it in old fishing magazines, you hear it at the bait shop, and you see pros on TV do it all the time. This method has become so ingrained in fishing culture that we do it on autopilot. We grab a shiner, run the hook through, and send it down without a second thought. But this habit, this muscle memory, is built on a misunderstanding of what happens to that bait in the crucial seconds after it hits the water, especially when you're fishing in anything deeper than a few feet. Let's start by setting the scene. It's early morning, the fog is just lifting off the water, and you've got a bucket full of beautiful, lively shiners. You can feel it's going to be a good day. You grab the most energetic one, a perfect specimen, and you rig it up just like you always have. You make that perfect cast, letting the line peel out as the bait sinks into the depths where a monster largemouth is waiting. You feel the weight hit the bottom, you give it a little twitch, and then you wait, and you wait some more. Nothing happens. This exact scenario plays out for anglers everywhere, every single weekend. They blame the weather, the barometric pressure, or just bad luck. But the real culprit isn't bad luck, it's bad physics, and it all started the second that shiner began its descent. So what is this killer technique? It's the classic method of hooking a shiner up through the bottom lip and out through the top lip, securing both lips together. It feels like the strongest way to do it, right? It seems like there's no way the shiner can tear off the hook during a cast or on the drop. And in that respect, you're not wrong. It is a very secure way to attach the bait to your hook. The problem isn't that the bait will come off. The problem is that by locking its jaw shut in this manner, you've inadvertently created a death trap. You've taken a living, breathing creature and turned it into a piece of hardware that is fundamentally unequipped to handle the simple act of sinking through water. It's a tiny detail with catastrophic consequences for the bait. Now let's talk about the simple science of the drop. When your weighted line pulls that shiner down through the water column, it's not gently swimming down. It's being pulled, often at a pretty fast rate. Water is rushing past its body, over its fins, and most importantly, against its face. Think of it like sticking your head out the window of a moving car. You feel that intense pressure of the air hitting you. Water is nearly 800 times denser than air, so the force that shiner experiences is incredibly powerful, even on a seemingly slow descent. Most of the shiner's body is streamlined to handle this, to cut through the water. But the method you used to hook it has created a major, unnatural vulnerability right at the front. Here is the critical failure of hooking through both lips. When you do this, you force the shiner's mouth to remain slightly open. It cannot close its mouth, no matter how hard it tries. As it descends, its open mouth acts like a scoop or a funnel. Water isn't flowing around its head, it's being rammed directly into its mouth at high speed and high pressure. The shiner has no way to stop this. It's the equivalent of forcing a fire hose into a person's mouth. This intense, relentless pressure is being channeled straight down its throat, and more critically, forced backwards through its delicate gill plates. This isn't natural breathing. This is a violent, high-pressure assault on its most vital respiratory organs. The shiner is quite literally being drowned by the water pressure. To truly understand the damage, we need to look at how gills work. A fish's gills are made of incredibly fine, delicate filaments full of tiny blood vessels called lamellae. This is where oxygen exchange happens. They are designed for a gentle, rhythmic flow of water that the fish controls by opening and closing its mouth and gill covers. They are not designed to withstand a high-pressure jet of water. When water is forced through the gills by the descent, it can tear these delicate structures, cause them to collapse, and essentially cause severe internal trauma. The shiner can't breathe, it panics, and it goes into shock. By the time it reaches the bottom 20 or 30 feet down, it's either already dead or so traumatized that it just lies there, limp and lifeless. So what does a predator fish like a largemouth bass see? A bass is an opportunistic predator, but it's also an efficient one. It's triggered by signs of life, distress, and vulnerability. A healthy shiner kicking and flashing is a dinner bell. A shiner that is panicking and struggling because it's being waterboarded on the way down might initially look like a distressed baitfish, which is good, but that distress is short-lived. A few seconds into the drop, that panic turns to paralysis and death. When your bait finally settles on the bottom, it's not sending out those vital, lifelike vibrations anymore. It's just a dead piece of meat. A hungry bass might still pick it up, but you've lost the primary advantage of using live bait, the action. Let's bust a common myth right now. The myth is that hooking through both lips forces the shiner to swim down. I've heard this one at the dock more times than I can count. The idea is that the angle of the hook and line makes the bait plane downwards. While there may be a tiny bit of truth to that in terms of direction, it completely ignores the deadly side effects we've been discussing. Your shiner isn't swimming down, it's being dragged down against its will while being subjected to a fatal procedure. Any directional advantage you think you're getting is completely negated by the fact that you are presenting a dead or dying bait to the fish. It's a classic case of anglers observing one small effect while being completely blind to the much larger, more important consequence. Imagine for a moment you have one of those fancy underwater cameras and you attach it to your line right above the shiner. You rig it the old way, through both lips, and drop it over the side of the boat. For the first 5 feet, you see it kicking, looking like a perfect bait. Then, as it picks up speed, you'd see its mouth forced open. You'd see its body start to contort unnaturally. The kicks become more frantic, more panicked, not like a natural swim. Then, as it passes the 15-foot mark, the frantic movements lessen. By 25 feet, it's barely moving at all. It hits the bottom with a little poof of silt and just lays there, limp. That's the reality that's invisible to us from the surface. Now let's contrast that with a better way. We're not saying you should never hook a bait near the head. In fact, it's often the best place. The solution is simple. You just need to allow the shiner to close its mouth. The easiest and most effective way to do this is to hook the shiner through the top lip only, or even better, through the hard, cartilaginous area around its nostrils. Go in one nostril and out the other, or just hook it through that tough piece of flesh right in front of its eyes. This still gives you a secure connection for casting. It still keeps the hook at the front of the bait for solid hook sets, but it leaves the shiner's jaw completely free to open, and more importantly, to close. Let's run that same underwater camera experiment again, but this time with the shiner hooked correctly through the nostrils. You drop it over the side. As it descends, you see its mouth is closed. Water is flowing smoothly over and around its head, just as nature intended. The shiner is not panicking. It might give a few kicks, adjusting its fins to the descent, but it's a controlled, natural movement. It's not fighting for its life against the water pressure. When it reaches the bottom, it's just as lively as it was in your bait bucket. It starts to swim around, exploring its new environment, sending out those vibrations that scream easy meal to any base in the area. The difference is literally night and day. This single adjustment has a massive impact on your presentation. A lively bait does the work for you. It struggles, it flashes, it creates a disturbance. It looks and acts like a creature that doesn't belong there, a perfect target. A dead bait, on the other hand, has zero action. You have to impart all the action yourself by twitching the rod, and it will never look as natural as the real thing. You've essentially turned your expensive live bait into a piece of cut bait. By switching your hooking location from both lips to just the upper nostril area, you are maximizing the life and effectiveness of every single shiner you put on the hook. You're giving yourself the best possible chance on every single drop. Let's talk about another excellent alternative, especially if you're fishing vertically or with a float. This is the dorsal hook method. Instead of hooking the bait in the head, you hook it just below the dorsal fin in the meaty part of its back. You want to make sure you go above the spine and lateral line, not through it. This method is fantastic because it's nowhere near the gills or the mouth. The shiner has complete freedom of movement and can breathe perfectly normally, no matter how fast it descends. When it gets to the desired depth, it will constantly try to swim down and away, creating a ton of irresistible action and vibration. This is a go-to method for many seasoned live bait anglers for a very good reason. It keeps the bait incredibly lively. Now, every method has its place. The dorsal hook method is amazing, but it can be less ideal for casting long distances, as the bait can sometimes spin or helicopter in the air. This is where the nostril hook method truly shines. It's the perfect all-around technique. It's streamlined for casting, it's great for slow trolling, it's fantastic for drifting, and as we've established, it's 100% safe for the shiner on a vertical drop. If you were to learn only one way to hook a shiner for the rest of your life, hooking it through the nostrils or the top lip would be the most versatile and effective choice you could make. It balances security, castability, and, most importantly, bait survival. Think about the financial side of it for a moment. Live shiners aren't cheap. You might pay anywhere from $10 to $20 or even more for a dozen good ones. If you're using the wrong hooking method, how many of those baits are you wasting on each trip? If half of them die on the descent, you've effectively thrown away half of your money before you even get a bite. That's like taking a $10 bill and tearing it in half. By simply changing where you place the hook, a free adjustment that takes zero extra time, you are doubling the effectiveness of your investment. You get more active fishing time out of each and every shiner. Let's address the argument some fishermen make. They say, "I've been hooking them through the lips for 30 years and I catch plenty of fish." And they're not lying. You can absolutely catch fish with a dead or dying shiner. A base will still eat a dead bait, but the question isn't whether you can catch fish that way. The question is, how many more fish could you have caught? How many times did a lethargic base inspect your dead bait and turn away when a lively, kicking shiner would have triggered an aggressive strike? You're not fishing to your full potential. You're settling for a few bites when you could be getting a lot more. This principle doesn't just apply to shiners either. It applies to any bait fish you use, whether it's a herring, an alewife, a chub, or a sucker. The anatomy and the physics are the same. If you are forcing their mouth open on the descent, you are damaging or killing them. The solution is always to hook them in a way that allows them to keep their mouth closed. This might be through the nose or in the back or even near the tail for certain presentations. The key is to stop and think about what the water pressure is doing to your bait. A little bit of empathy for your bait fish will translate directly into more fish in the boat. Consider the different fishing scenarios. If you're in a shallow pond, maybe only 6 feet deep, and you're just casting and slowly retrieving, the descent is very short. The negative effects of hooking through both lips will be less pronounced. The shiner might survive that short trip, but the moment you move to a deeper lake, a reservoir, or a river where you're dropping that bait down 20, 30, or even 50 feet, the game changes completely. The longer and faster the descent, the more critical it is to use a life-preserving hooking technique. The one-size-fits-all method of hooking through both lips fails spectacularly the moment you add significant depth to the equation. So here is the practical takeaway. Next time you open your bait bucket, I want you to pause for just a second before you hook that first shiner. Look at the hook and look at the shiner's head. Consciously decide to avoid the lower jaw entirely. Slide the hook point through the area just above the lips, through the nostrils. It will feel different at first if you're used to the old way, but it is just as secure. Make your cast and fish with the confidence of knowing that the bait arriving in the strike zone is as healthy and active as it can possibly be. You have now maximized your odds of getting that bite. Here's a challenge for you. The next time you go fishing, conduct your own experiment. Use 2 rods. On one rod, rig your shiner the old way through both lips. On the second rod, rig it the new way through the nostrils or the top lip. Cast them both out to the same spot. Let them sink to the bottom and let them sit for 5 minutes. Now, reel them both in slowly. Take a look at the 2 shiners. I am willing to bet a dozen of the most expensive shiners that the one hooked through the nostrils will still be green and kicking, while the one hooked through both lips will be pale, lifeless, and dead. The proof will be right there on your own hooks. In the end, it's these small details, these 1% improvements, that separate good anglers from great anglers. It's about questioning the old ways and not just doing something because that's how it's always been done. It's about understanding the why behind the how. Realizing that you've been inadvertently killing your bait is a huge aha moment. It's one of those tips that once you learn it, you can never go back. This isn't about some magic lure or a secret spot. It's about fundamentally improving your technique. It's a change that will make every single one of your future live bait trips more effective, more efficient, and ultimately more successful. You'll be presenting a better bait and you will get more bites. It's that simple. So let's wrap this up. The biggest takeaway today is that the classic, secure method of hooking a shiner through both lips is a silent killer. It turns the bait's own mouth into a high-pressure funnel that damages its gills and ensures it's dead or dying by the time it reaches the fish. The game-changing moment is realizing that this isn't just a theory, it's a physical reality happening on your line with every drop. The solution is incredibly simple. Switch to hooking through the nostril area or just the top lip. This tiny change keeps the bait's mouth closed, preserves its life, and maximizes the irresistible, natural action that makes live bait so effective. This one adjustment can truly be the difference between a frustrating day of feeding dead bait to turtles and the thrill of battling a trophy fish. Thank you so much for watching. If this video gave you that aha moment, do me a favor and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on more tips that challenge the old way of doing things. Now I want to hear from you. Be honest. Is the 2-lip method how you've always done it? Let me know in the comments below.